Good morning, everybody. There are many ways to fight with a ranged weapon in Dungeons & Dragons Online. You've got bows, heavy crossbows, light crossbows, heavy repeating crossbows, light repeating crossbows, great crossbows, thrown weapons like axes, darts, hammers, shurikens, daggers, and the Inquisitive-style dual-wield crossbows. One of the classic easy leveling paths has always been repeating crossbow, since for the longest time, it just gave you such a high amount of damage it didn't really matter what type of character you were playing, the weapon itself was just so strong. This was in an earlier time of Dungeons & Dragons Online, where you didn't need that much actual damage to get through the game. Especially when playing on Elite difficulty, pretty much every single quest can be turned to dust just by bringing in a repeating crossbow as long as you're proficient. You see, repeating crossbows fire 3 times, meaning that any amount of damage you add onto them is actually effectively tripled. A +1 repeating crossbow gets +1 damage on each shot. A repeating crossbow that adds a d6 of fire damage is adding like 3 d6s of fire damage because you have 3 shots. When the game first released with repeating crossbows, it was very common to see people taking paladins, rogues, rangers, it didn't matter what it was, into quests with repeating crossbow using characters because of just how strong they were. However, with the advent of the artificer class, a lot of people will just start taking artificer and use repeating crossbows that way. And now in modern DDO, repeating crossbows aren't quite as good as they used to be. Inquisitives have taken up the spot as being a fast fire method, replacing repeating crossbow almost entirely, especially given that Inquisitives happen to add a bunch more damage per shot from their Inquisitive Law damage dice that kind of pushes repeating crossbow to the side, and so you don't see quite as many people actually playing with them. However, this doesn't mean repeating crossbows are bad, they just have a very different place. You see, repeating crossbows are extremely powerful in the early game. The lower level you are, the higher of an impact your repeating crossbow has. Since they propagate all of this extra damage, so if you have anything that adds a little bit of damage to your crossbow and it gets an extra shot and shot and shot, it fires quick, it does a bunch of damage, and allows you to just burn through the early game very quickly and deal a lot of single target damage. The problem is that as you scale up, there are very few things that actually scale with repeating crossbows to add a bunch of damage to them. Even the Artificer class, which is pretty much specifically designed to be used with repeating crossbows, doesn't really have any big attacks that add a bunch of damage. Instead, you get crowd control abilities, which is very cool, however, doesn't necessarily lead into additional damage for the late game, which means you have to try to scale in other ways. Now with Update 51, there was a brand new feat added into Epics called Extended Clip, and it allows you to shoot 4 times instead of 3, giving you 1 extra shot. Now I wanted to test out, 1, how good repeating crossbows felt during the leveling process and working through to all the way to the end game, and 2, how exactly good the Extended Clip feat was. As far as the leveling purpose goes, it's levels like a dream. If you're somebody who doesn't have access to the Inquisitive tree, but you want to have a good crossbow type character, repeating crossbow is where it's at. I don't have any bonuses to any crossbow stuff on this character, and with just a little bit of damage, my character could just slam through quests like it was nothing. This character's damage felt really, really, really strong all the way through the game, right up until about level 18. Once I was level 18, then the monsters started to feel like they had more hit points, and I didn't feel like I was doing as much damage by comparison to some of the later stuff. However, right up until that point, it felt really, really strong, and I just used a couple of groups to just help me clear out some of the monsters, because while I could get through everything, Artificers being really tanky and defensive in the type of character that I was playing, it just took a little while, so having other people in the party helped push through some of the quests a little bit faster. However, once getting into Epics, you get so many different options to add damage onto each of your attacks, either by using special abilities, getting sneak attack dice. You just get to add so much that it makes your extra shots feel more valuable. And that 4th shot has a massive impact. You can almost think of it like it's about a 20% extra damage increase. You would think it would be like an extra 33% damage increase, but it's not quite. You still have a little bit of a reload animation, but you're just reloading less of the time. So it's about a 20% damage increase on your repeating crossbow. This doesn't quite make it directly competitive with Inquisitive, however, it is quite strong, and it definitely helps out for the leveling process, making your character a lot stronger in the short term. Additionally, it cuts out a lot of the special reloading time that goes into the Endless Fusillade animation, which is where your crossbow doesn't have to reload because you use magic to prevent it from reloading, and it makes it feel a little bit more fluid. Now, the thing that I was very worried about this character was that I wouldn't be very strong as I moved to the endgame, but the odd thing is that the higher level I got, the more damage my character was actually able to acquire. Because as I said, crossbows triple. Anything you put onto the crossbow, you actually get triple out of it. A deadly 10 item, well, that's deadly across 3 different shots. Any extra added damage, like added fire or cold, again, across 3 shots. And special attacks that add additional damage, well, that's across all 3 shots. or 4 shots as you move into epics. Additionally, with Sharadi Champion, being able to have an extra shot so you're constantly firing means you're getting so many of these additional Sharadi procs and just doing a ton of damage. Now, of course, there is unfortunately a kind of bad bug that almost every single epic ability when you use a crossbow, with a repeating crossbow, with a great crossbow it works just fine because you shoot and it's all good. With a repeating crossbow, for some reason it only uses the first shot. So if you use the Fate Singer Epic Strike or the Shadow Dancer Epic Strike, instead of it firing 4 times, it only fires once, and that's kind of bad because that kind of defeats the purpose of using a repeating crossbow. Hopefully that bug will get fixed, however it's not fixed as of recording this video. Instead, I just used Dire Charge, and it turns out Dire Charge is amazing. Dire Charge is a knockdown, and it allows you to hit 4 times, which means even though my DC wasn't always the best, hitting a monster 4 times means it pretty much always worked, allowing me to perma knockdown whatever I wanted, which is really great when you're a ranged character. Additionally, once you move all the way up to the top of the Sharadi Champion tree, you're able to pick up Inexorable Advance, an ability that if you've never pressed it before, you should try it. It's very silly. I will include a clip in a little bit of what it actually looks like. It blew my mind. Overall, I really enjoyed playing the repeating crossbow build, and I liked it a lot more than playing a bow character, just because I felt the shots were a little bit more consistent. There is quite a bit of lag in Dungeons & Dragons Online sometimes, and a lot of desync, and oftentimes when you're using a ranged attack, you'll shoot and the monster will have either moved or it's not actually there on your client as it is on the server, and then all of a sudden you're shooting at something and not actually hitting it, or your bolts go nowhere. But repeating crossbows at least shoot many more, so you do get more hits than you would with a bow or other type of slower shooting weapon. As a result, this character felt pretty smooth. A couple of pro tips I would definitely give with this one is that you should always be using your rune arm. I personally played as the pure artificer build, and the reason for that was that I just really wanted to make use of the rune arm. Additionally, if you decide that you want to do any multi-classing, you got to take 6 levels of fighter to get some critical threat multiplier out of the Kensai tree, and I didn't really want to give up that many levels of artificer, so I decided to go pure artificer and use the rune arms, and the rune arms had a huge amount of impact in my damage, especially during the leveling process, and for single target and AoE as well. This character doesn't really have any area of effect, and in fact, I actually didn't use Improved Precise Shot pretty much any of the time because of my rune arms. Anytime I got surrounded or there were too many monsters, I would just get the more appropriate rune arm, kind of do some blasting, shoot out some energy beams right onto the ground, or laser shock some people that were right next to me, and that generally took the place of the times where I would actually be needing to shoot multiple targets with Improved Precise Shot. Overall, it was really, really fun, and I would recommend giving it a shot. I can't conclusively put repeating crossbow on any sense of scale of DPS testing right now, although it did feel very good, and I would be confident that if you were to take a repeating crossbow build, if fully built into the endgame, people would notice that you're dealing a good amount of damage. It feels good right now, and something that if you've been waiting for a long time to test a repeating crossbow, now would be the time to go in and give it another shot. But with that being said, let's pass it over to me with the build. Why shoot 1 time when you can shoot 4 times? That's the motto of the Artificer repeating crossbow build, and that's what I have to show you today. Now, this character is a pure Artificer. There's many different ways to build a repeating crossbow character. I went with pure Artificer specifically because I wanted the capstone. One of the main things when you make any type of physical damage character is you need critical threat range and multiplier. You need to have some way to add that into your character build, and all of that comes from the enhancement trees. And one of the sad things about Artificer is that they really only get critical multiplier from Master Engineer, which means you need to take the capstone. If you don't take the capstone in Artificer, you need to multiclass with something, and generally that's 6 levels of fighter. So it's either take 6 levels of fighter plus whatever levels of Artificer you want, or go pure Artificer. So I said, hey, why not go pure Artificer and see how it's going to go. So the way this character works, I have maxing out intelligence, which is why I'm a gnome. Gnome gave me a color spray for the leveling process, and then the high intelligence is just very nice. Constitution, because I don't like dying, and dexterity. One of the most irritating parts about playing Artificer is that while you're an intelligence-based class, you need dexterity for all of the ranged feats. With this character, you really only need like a 17. I actually pretty much never used Improved Precise Shot, so I would say that 17 is probably the max you would need to go with this type of character. Improved Precise Shot is nice, but you can just take a little bit extra time by just shooting monsters. I was lazy and never turned it on for the most part, and as a result, you can really only get away with having a maximum of 17, but you really want that 17 to be able to take all of the feats. So 17 dex is kind of your minimum on here. Everything you can into intelligence and everything you can into constitution. The other stats don't really matter. As far as your skills go, you're an intelligence-based artificer, so you're going to have all of them. But the ones you care about, disable device, because you're a trap guy. Search, because you're a trap guy. Spot, because you're a trap guy. You just got to find the traps and disable them. That's kind of your main thing for the party. Then for healing yourself and dealing damage, Spellcraft and Repair are really nice. Jump, again, it's just nice because artificers don't get any jump skills themselves. They don't have any jumping abilities, and jumping is really good in DDO, so leveling this up is great. And then everything else after that is kind of a wash. Do you want swimming? I don't know, I took it. Opening lock is kind of important for opening locks. It's usually just extra treasure, but you definitely should put some points in there. Haggle, get some more gold. Heal, get some more healing spell power. This character, from level 1 to 12, actually heals itself with positive energy using potions. However, once you get to 12, you take the Construct Essence feats, allowing yourself to turn into a full construct. So then instead of actually healing, you just press a button and then boom, you repair instead. So what kind of feats did I take? Well, as I said, I took ranged feats. So you get a lot of free feats for Artificer every 4 levels, so 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. You get an extra feat on this character. And so I use that for stuff like Construct Essence here, being able to heal a little bit from Repair, as well as Improved Construct Essence, basically making you a full repairable character. It makes you like a Warforged without being one. So I don't have the Warforged tree, but I do get the bonus, so I get the bonus intelligence from Gnome and then Gnome tree. But I have the Repair, I don't need to eat, I'm immune to paralysis. It's pretty cool. I also took the feats Precision, Improved Critical Range, and Weapon Focus Range. You get a lot of feats in this build, so you have extras to kind of throw around. And then the range feats, you have to take Rapid Shot, Precise Shot, Point Blank Shot. You don't necessarily need to take Improved Precise Shot, which is a 19 dex, so if you don't have the tomes or whatever, you can avoid this. But so that one's not as important. But you need Point Blank, you need Precise Shot, you need Rapid Shot, and those have some dex requirements. On top of that, I also took the Metamagic feats Quicken and Maximize. I never used Maximize, not even once. I literally didn't even put it on my bar. I never turned it on any skills, so you probably don't need it. So I'll have something better for you in the build you can follow in the description of the video. Epic feats for this character. I went with Expanded Clip, which is the new feat, and that's why I wanted to test out this character, because repeating crossbows fire 3 shots, so it's 1, 2, 3. However, this is a brand new feat that came out with Update 51, lets you go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So with this, I tried it out. It feels pretty good. It's hard to say whether it's better or worse. I mean, it's an extra shot, and an extra shot's an extra shot, so, you know, not too bad. I also took Overwhelming Critical here, as well as Epic Damage Reduction and Combat Archery. This is why you need the 17 Dexterity, because it gives you +1 W in all your crossbow usage, and that's a lot of extra damage. So Combat Archery, very, very good, 17 dex. If you can't manage 17, you can get away with 13. So your breakpoints are either 13 dex from the Heroic Range feats, 17 for Combat Archery, and if you really want to improve Precise Shot, you need 19, but again, you don't really need 19 on there. As far as the Epic Destiny feats, I went with Tactician because tactical DCs are really good for this character. Double Shot because it's double shot and I'm a crossbow guy. And Crush Weakness because I was making targets helpless, although I don't do that anymore. However, in a party, you can have somebody else help you with that, and I'll talk about that when I get to the Epic Destinies. And then for your Legendary feat, you want Sign of the Ethereal Plane. It gives you 6d6 sneak attack dice, and because you're a repeating crossbow person, this isn't 6d6, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 times 6d6, because each crossbow shot will apply the sneak attack dice, giving you a total of 24 sneak attack, which is a lot better than 66. So keep that in mind. Anything that adds extra sneak attack dice is going to massively help out with that this ability and other, or like any of your crossbow shots. Anything that adds sneak attack dice or extra damage per hit, very, very good on this character. As far as the spells go, most of the spells you're going to take here are the spells to convert your weapon types. So like Biesh weapons, adamantine weapons, good weapons from planar, the weapon enchants, the imbues to get extra damage on your weapons, deadly weapons, which is the best imbue of them all, which is the one, once you get it, you will use this every time you can, unless you need to convert a weapon type. Conjure bolts, because I run out of bolts all the time, and now that you fire 4 shots, trust me, when you're putting on Endless Fusillade and you just continue firing like you're playing friggin' Call of Duty over here with your assault rifle, you're definitely going to want to be able to conjure bolts so you don't run out. Outside of that, other noteworthy abilities, Lesser Global Vulnerability. This has some weird applications to some certain quests, like in the Feywild, so just having it on hand so you can use it when you need to is nice. And then as we get up to the later end, Radiant Force Field is a great cooldown. You just press a button, and then all of a sudden you get this shield that surrounds your character, and so your character has this bubble, and you take 25% less damage. You can also cast this on somebody else, which means you can cast this on like a friend who's dying, or if you're doing high Reaper mode, you can cast this on a tank, and they take less damage. It's very, very useful. And then finally, tier 6, level 6, I used all these spells constantly. Deadly Weapons is the best weapon damage spell in the game you can get, so take that. Tactical Detonation is awesome for knocking people down. You throw a big bomb and it knocks people over. The 49 reflex save, ignore that. That number's useless. It's based off your intelligence and all this other stuff, but it's not actually a reflex save. It's a strength check, and monsters oftentimes fail their strength check and will get knocked over constantly, especially like ethereal creatures, ghosts, that sort of thing. You're fighting shadows, you're fighting wraiths, you're fighting specters. Tactical Detonation. Reconstruct is the best heal in the game, so you take that. And then finally, Arcane Tempest is actually just amazing for leveling. It does a ton of damage, and you will have a good time with it. So please take Arcane Tempest, use it a lot once you get it. It's super duper good. As far as the enhancement tree goes for this character, you're going to want to take everything in, or 41 points in Battle Engineer. I went with the Rune Arm recharge here and some of the Sunder DCs. I didn't need the item wear because it's not important, and my character's intelligence based, so I don't need this disable device open lock. If you don't have as much intelligence, you might want to put some points in here to help you with traps. But for me, I'm currently using like a key lock ring, I think, or like heroic, and my character stats are like almost 100, so I don't care too much about that sort of thing. I grabbed Caustic Shot, the Shadow Defenses line, and the Thundershock weapon. You're going to notice I only put 1 point. Extra points doesn't actually increase the effect of the skill, it just increases the base damage, which is nice, but it's not really important. The extra effects are what matters. So like the Sundering effect gets a little bit better, gets like a little higher DC, but honestly, if you shoot 3 times, because it applies on each shot, so if I apply Shadow Defenses, I shoot 4 times, so the monster has to make 4 saves in a row. Generally, it's going to land. And then finally, you have the Thundershock weapon, which is a trip. Again, same thing, but it only costs 1 point, so it's really nice. And then Endless Fusillade is your big attack here. Basically, it makes it so that your crossbow reloads itself. So when I press it, I can just fire, which I detailed out before. Then after that, I put the rest of my points in Renegade Mastermaker, picking up all the tanky stuff, grabbing we got the Constructive Conduit here, giving you all this extra hit points. So you have Repair Amplification, because you don't get any from anywhere else, as well as a whole bunch of life, extra Constitution, extra Defense. That's why my character is so tanky, and I felt super, super durable. Additionally, you can also grab Converter here, which allows you to heal people that are not robots, and you make them robots. So you press this on a friend, and so say they're like a human fighter, and then all of a sudden, they are a human fighter, but they can be repaired because you convert them. So you can now start healing them, which makes it very helpful because casting the healing potion spells is an option, but they're so slow, and it's like you just got to pitch this really slow-moving potion bottle spell. Nah, just have an instant heal with Converter. It's much better. Then Harper Agent is extremely good for this character. Intelligence to hit, as well as getting intelligence to damage from casting spells. I forgot to mention Insightful Damage, this spell. This gives you intelligence to damage with crossbows. This gives you intelligence to hit with crossbows. So by the time you're level 6, you want to take Strategic Combat here, so you can have intelligence to hit, and then you can cast the spell Intelligence to damage. And as you level up, Know the Angles increases your tactical DCs as based on your intelligence modifier, as well as your damage. And this is important because your character not only uses Thundershock weapons, which scales off of your Sunder bonus, which is tactical, so it kind of scales there, but also later on I used Dire Charge as well from Legendary Dreadnought, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the Gnome tree, because I just had some extra points, so I just dumped them in here. If you don't have extra points, don't worry about spending a Gnome, it's just extra intelligence. It's not a big deal. Now, Epic Destinies. I want to talk about this in 2 pieces. Number 1, there are a lot of extremely powerful options for this type of character, so don't think that this is the only way you have to do it. When I'm looking here, try out things and experiment yourself. However, there's a lot of bugs, and those bugs are repeating crossbows. Unfortunately, pretty much every single epic strike and most epic attacks don't work with repeating crossbows. So, if you use, for example, the Shrouding or Shadow Strike here, it's a attack that has +3 critical threat range and multiplier. This is an extremely powerful ability because you go 1, 2, 3, 4 with your crossbow and hit 4 times. It's great. However, it doesn't work. This attack, along with the pretty much every other attack, so like the Fatesinger attack, among other things, instead, when you press it, it actually fires 1 shot, and then your character does this really clunky long reload. So you only get 1 attack, and then it has this super long reload animation that takes up the rest of the time. It's a terrible bug, and it sucks. So it means Shadow Dancer, not a great option. Fatesinger, not a great option until they get fixed. Dreadnought, though, Dire Shot, which then gets a knockdown with a momentum swing, works 4 times. And since it's 4 shots, you're pretty much always going to knock somebody down. So you just go boom, 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 and then all of a sudden the monsters get tripped. Really, really useful. Highly recommend Dire Charge. Now, I actually was using Dire Charge all the way up here during the leveling process with Lay Waste because I wanted to use the tier 5 because it's extremely powerful. However, Legendary Rally has the same problem. This is a massive giant attack that's a guaranteed crit with +2 critical multiplier, extremely high damage. Snapped, it fires once, and you have that crazy reload animation. So until those bugs get fixed, this is the setup that I recommend, although afterwards you can experiment around a little bit. Legendary Dreadnought to grab Dire Charge with Momentum Swing, and then Shradi Champion for the main tree. You basically take every single thing in Shradi Champion, except for the actual Epic Strike. The reason why you don't take Hunt's End is because Hunt's End's damage only applies to the first shot. And you have 4, so you'd rather something that applies multiple times, and that's why Dire Charge is better, and why this shot right here, Shadow Strike, would be best. If you could use Shadow Strike, you wouldn't even spend points in Legendary Dreadnought, you would take Shadow Strike, and then you would also grab this ability right here, Dark Imbuement, and do crazy high amounts of damage. But due to the bug, it's not going to work out that well for you. However, you take all the stuff in here, grab the mantle, all the extra stats, and just kind of shoot people. What I will say is Inexorable Advance does an insane amount of damage, and I'm going to put a clip just after this so you can see how much damage it actually does. So I'm going to give you the one whole Fusillade without Inexorable Advance and one with Inexorable Advance. So no Inexorable Advance. Let's go. So one Fusillade. Okay, so it's 5,300 to 1,491, so that's like 145,000 damage. So now with Inexorable Advance. It is a little bit higher. So in 18 seconds, I went from 140 to 922. However, moving on, this is kind of the setup that I had. Using some crowd control out of here, Dimension Door out of Shadow Dancer, and if I had more points, I would just grab some more Sneak Attack out of Shadow Dancer and Evasion, which is very, very nice. As far as equipment goes, I mean, this character doesn't have any super high equipment, but because I'm using Cold Iron Bracers. Oh, geez. I didn't update my gear since I, reincarnated, basically. But you want intelligence items, accuracy items, deadly items, that sort of thing. So I have these goggles here. I have intelligence, insightful, intelligence, accuracy. I crafted these myself. Kenneth Crafting, really nice. What else? I've got, Morning Loads, Repeating Heavy Crossbow. Late game, you're going to want to get Sticker Click. It's currently the best crossbow. Comes out of Project Nemesis, so it's not too hard to come by. It's pretty nice. I'm also using the Renegade Mastermaker set from Sharn, or the Arcsteel Battle Mage, sorry. It's better to use the actual ranged set, the Wildwood set from Sharn. However, I don't have it, so I didn't use it. I just kind of shot people. Outside of, your standard ranged affairs, so double shot, deadly, accuracy, intelligence, then you want your constitutions, your shelterings, things that prevent you from taking damage, and then a repair item. Once you have that, it really doesn't matter. Your rune arms, generally, whatever rune arm you use, will have the stats you need on it. So, for example, I'm using the Arc Welder here. It has Magnetism and Lightning Lore. So I don't need to have Magnetism and Lightning Lore somewhere else because it's already on the rune arm. And most rune arms will give themselves these spell powers that they need. You also want to make sure you have something that gives you Ethereal during the leveling process. And then once you get into Epics, you can just use this Vision effect here, and you're all covered, so you don't need that anymore. That's pretty much it. That's all I have to say about Repeating Crossbow Artificer. Overall, it's a very fun character to play. It started out slow in Epics, but then it started to really, really, really go quick and kind of blast your way through the leveling process, and I had a lot of fun. This character seems like it would be strong in the endgame, especially with Inexorable Advance being able to do insane amounts of damage. I wouldn't be surprised if you were able to do about 2 million damage with a fully geared Artificer in about 18 seconds with Inexorable Advance. So is it broken? I don't know. I don't care. I'm reincarnating. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like the video, as it helps out a lot. Consider dinging that bell so you know when every single time I upload a YouTube video, you get to see it right away. And if you're like, man, this is so cool, I would like to get some more tips about the leveling process to see how some of this stuff works, make sure you go to twitch.tv/Strimtom to see the Twitch stream so you can ask questions live about what things are going on. And on top of that, we have a good time. It's a goofball experience. But that being said, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to brush your teeth. Do it. In fact, just go do it now. If you're watching this video, turn it off, go brush your teeth. Come on, don't forget.